Hello and welcome to this lesson on understanding chords. So in this lesson we're going to understand how to play the first few chords that you need to know when you're starting off with this kind of thing. So we're going to be doing major, minor, dominant seventh, minor seventh and major seventh. So let's get started. So what is a chord? Okay, it is a harmonic or nice sounding set of pitches consisting of multiple notes, and you can call those notes pitches as well, that are heard as if sounding simultaneously or at the same time. So a note is a single sound and a chord is lots of sounds, lots of notes played together. And it's a very complex overall sound for our ears and our brain to process. And basically the work we're going to do on these chords, this is an extension of what we did in our intervals tutorial. So the chord that springs to mind for most people when they're starting off with this kind of thing is the major chord, and they may not even realise they're playing a major chord. If somebody says to them, oh, can you play a C chord, they're actually playing a C major chord. That's what we think of when we say just the letter C or D or F or B flat. So a major chord. I'm going to use C major as my basis for all this, and so with a C major chord, you probably already know that you need the first and the third and the fifth. Those three notes. So it's the first note of the scale, the third note of the scale, and the fifth. First, third and fifth. Now when we play the C major chord like that with the C at the bottom, that's called root position. If you move the C up an octave, so you've got E, G and C, that's still a C major chord, but that's what we call the first inversion. And if we move the E up to the top, so we've got G, C, E, excuse the way I'm holding my fingers, it looks a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? G, C, E, that's the second inversion, and then if I swing the G round to the top of that, that is the root position again. So we've got root position, first inversion, second inversion, and the root again. Obviously I don't play the piano like this normally, but I'm doing it so you can see the keys. Doesn't matter what order you've got those notes in, as long as you've got those three notes, you've got a chord of C major. Now interestingly enough, when you play the C major in root position like this, what you have between the first and the third is a major third interval, and if you watch my intervals lesson you'll understand that. If you haven't, I strongly advise you to watch that tutorial about intervals. And then if you look at the interval between the middle note and the top note, that's a minor third. So a major chord is a major third and a minor third. So there's your major third, C to E, there's your minor third, E to G. So that was the major chord. Just make sure you understand that if you see C or D or E, just the plain letter, what they mean there is the major chord. So just C is C major, just D is D major, okay? But we should really put C, M, A, J or C with a full word, but we tend to be a bit lazy, especially in the rock and pop world, and we just say C or D or E. So if we look at our software here, which is Notion, very good music software. I should stress, not that I'm sponsored by them or anything, but here we can see C major, we've got C, E and G written underneath. This is the root position. And then we have the first inversion, E, G and C. And then we have the second inversion, G, C and E. And then if we keep going, of course, we come eventually to the root position just an octave higher, C, E and G. So those are the different inversions, but they are all C major chords, and it's the first and the major third and the perfect fifth. Right, let's move on to the minor chord now. So C to E, that's a major third. So if I lower the E by one semitone, that becomes a minor third. So a C minor chord is first, minor third and perfect fifth. Okay? This note and this note. Okay? So with this chord, with the minor chord, you've got a minor interval on the bottom and a major interval at the top. So you've got a minor third there and a major third there. So round the other way. Here it is in the software in 4 inversions. So you've got root position, first inversion, second inversion, and the root again. And you can see this E flat is the feature of all those chords. See? So C minor, if you see that written on the page, it will probably say C with a small m or C-M-I-N. Okay, that's how you tell the difference between major and minor on the written page. Both major and minor both have the first and the perfect fifth. Is that all important middle note. In the case of C major it's E, and in the case of C minor it's E flat. So C major and C minor. So those are the big two, aren't they? Major and minor. And most of what we're going to do is going to be based on one or other of those two chords. So if on the written page you see C7, so capital letter C and the number 7, what you're looking at there is C dominant 7th. Okay, but we tend to just call it C7. So dominant 7 chords are often built on the 5th degree of the scale, or dominant of a key. For instance, in the key of C major, the note G is the 5th of the key, and the 7th built on G is a dominant 7th called G7th. Okay, so C is the 5th or dominant of F major. Let's show you F. There's C, the 5th. Okay, if I build a 7th chord on C, it's the C major chord with this B flat that you find in the key of F major. So C dominant 7th is the major triad. Notice that word triad obviously means 3. So C, E and G, the C major chord that we've already learnt, plus this note here, which is B flat. A layman's way of understanding this is you just come down a tone from the root. So there's C, the root note, come down 2 semitones to B flat, add that to the major chord, and that is C dominant 7th, or if you like, C7. This dominant 7th thing is quite a hard thing to grasp. And if you don't understand that too well, don't worry, as long as you know that C dominant 7th is a C major chord and the note that's a tone down from the root note added, in this case B flat. You might remember from our intervals lesson that C to B flat is a minor 7th interval. Okay, so it's a C major chord with the minor 7th note, and it's called the dominant 7th, or just 7. So C7 is that. Let's look at it on our software here. So we've got the notes stacked up: C, E, G, that's our major triad, and here's our all-important B flat, and the combination of those 4 notes, C, E, G and B flat, is C dominant 7th. The first, major third, perfect 5th and minor 7th notes. So dominant 7th done. Now let's do minor 7th. And when you see minor 7th, you'll see something like CM7. C small m7, that's C minor 7. You might see CMIN, short for minor 7th. So the minor 7th. What is the minor 7th? Well, it's the minor chord. Okay, so remember C minor was C, E flat and G, with that minor 7th note as well. So again, we use B flat. Whereas the C7th was very much a major chord with that added B flat, this is very much a minor chord with that added B flat. You see? So C minor 7th is C minor with the minor 7th note as well. And how would we use that? It's kind of a more complex or subtle minor. So there's C minor, very straightforward, first, minor, third and 5th, and add that B flat, and it's a warmer, more subtle minor chord, definitely a minor chord, but with that added B flat. Let's look at it on the software here. So here we are: C, E flat, G, so that's the C minor triad, and then the B flat on top. So minor seventh comprises first, minor third, perfect fifth, that's your minor triad, and minor seventh. The minor seventh note, to stress this, is the note you'll find two semitones down from the root, in this case B flat. Here's the last chord we're going to do in this particular lesson, but lots of lessons to come with more complicated chords, if you like. This one is the major seventh chord, and if you see it on the printed page, it will say something like C, MAJ 7. So major 7. Very, very occasionally you'll see C and a triangle and a 7, but that's, you know, not very often. MAJ 7 is the more typical way of writing this out. So what is a major seventh? It couldn't be more straightforward. It's the major triad C, E, G with the major seventh note, the B. So it's that C, E, G, B. Okay, and in layman's terms, the note you add to the major triad is one semitone down from the root note. So C major seventh is C, E, G, so definitely a major chord with that B. A very different sound to C dominant seventh, which is that B flat added. This is C major seventh. Here it is on the software: C, E, G, and B. So it's all notes taken from the major scale. The first, the major third, the perfect fifth, and the major seventh note. So C major seventh. Very often it's good to use this chord straight after the major. So if you go, if I should do something for you here. And then maybe go to the seventh. See? And then go back to the major seventh. That's a good use of the major 7. So that's the end of this fairly short lesson, in which I've dealt with all the, the first few chords that you need to know when you're getting into playing chords. In the next lesson, we're going to delve a bit deeper. So if you enjoyed this lesson, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much for watching, and you'll see me in my next tutorial.